What's up, guys? Welcome to the channel. My name is Almahdi. For those of you that don't know me, I have a multiple seven-figure Airbnb portfolio. I'm a super host and I do several $100,000 a year on Airbnb. What I'm going to show you today is the brand new way to approach short-term rentals in 2026, whether you own property or whether you don't own property, and exactly how to win this year moving forward. Everything has completely changed in the short-term rental space. And what I'd like to share with you, by the end of this video, you're gonna know exactly how to start a profitable Airbnb business in 2026 while you have a job, the same way I did when I started. If you have experience, if you don't have experience, that is all irrelevant, because the process that I'm gonna share with you today and how it's different from all the other methods teaching Airbnb is going to completely change the way you view short-term rental investing in 2026. So without further ado, let's get right into it. The way I stumbled on Airbnb a few years ago, I was working, and like many of you aspiring entrepreneurs, I had my job and I wanted to build wealth and I wanted to get into the entrepreneur game. I had done many other things. I'd done Amazon FBA. I had tried all sorts of different business opportunities that you see online, crypto, this and that. But it wasn't until I found Airbnb and invested in a property and made $12,500 in my very first month that everything completely changed for me. And since then, I had gone all in while even having a job. So Airbnb is something that you absolutely can do while you already have a business or a job and you want to build a semi-passive income that can eventually build up to a point where whether you keep your job or quit your job, whatever it is that you want to do, you have all of that cash flow coming in. You can travel the world, you have more time freedom, you can spend more time with your family, friends, or just your hobbies and living your life. So that's exactly what we're going to talk about today. And how has Airbnb changed in 2026? So the old way of doing Airbnb is just throwing up a property and hoping everything works out, because you used to actually be able to do that. Back before the pandemic, you could take a property, Airbnb was pretty new, and list it, put minimal effort, and you would succeed. And over time, people started jumping into Airbnb, different markets became saturated, and what ended up happening is anybody taking Airbnb as a hobby and not professionally, their profits started to decrease. And that is exactly why you might be seeing videos about Airbnb collapsing. Is Airbnb dead? And the answer to that is it absolutely is not, if you know what you're doing and if you approach it professionally. Okay, so what does that mean and what does that look like? Airbnb in 2026, whether you're doing Airbnb rental arbitrage, whether you're doing co-listing, or whether you're purchasing property and building out your portfolio that way, or any combination of all of those. I have plenty of videos explaining the different Airbnb methods. Up here somewhere, I'll drop a link to my How to Start Airbnb course video. It's completely free, where I explain all of the different methods and how they work. Those are all strategies that still work today, but things have further changed and shifted, and that is exactly what I want to share with you. So the people that are professionally approaching Airbnb and adding all sorts of amenities, all sorts of experiences, pickleball courts and basketball courts, and pretty much creating really nice properties, those people are still going to dominate. And what I also want to share with you is, beyond doing that, there's actually a very little known strategy that is not just short-term rentals, not just Airbnb, but a method where you can further maximize your profits, because there's a lot of hosts that join Airbnb and then their profits aren't what they expected. Now, why is that happening? Well, one of them is that there's a lot of competition. So you need to approach Airbnb professionally, okay? There's people like myself, people like my students that I work with one-on-one, where we approach everything meticulously and everything is oriented around creating an experience, creating a memorable time for the guests through all of the amenities that we offer at the property, and doing a tremendous amount of research on finding what works in that particular market. So that is how you need to approach Airbnb, and then you can still crush it in 2026. So once you've created that amazing property with tons of amenities, how do you maximize your rental income? Whether the economy is doing well, whether interest rates have gone up or down, whether the sentiment around tourism and traveling which, essentially we're in the hospitality business, how do we ensure that we still maintain massive profits, even if Airbnb might have taken a dip or all these different headlines that we're seeing? I found the solution. And the solution to that is what I call the hybrid B&B model. And the way the hybrid B&B model works is, outside of also listing your property on short-term rental websites, there's another category that you can jump into that will fill in the gap for if you have a slower season on Airbnb, or if there's a bit of a down season where people are not traveling to your location as much. For instance, if you have a property where people go for, skiing, snowboarding, and that sort of thing, what do you do in the summer, right? Well, there's got to be something that you can do to fill in that time, fill in that space where your income might be a little bit lower, which a lot of hosts run into: seasonality. And the solution is mixing what is called mid-term rentals into your strategy. So what does that mean? There are different websites. For example, one of them that is amazing is called Furnished Finder, where you will find people that are traveling for work, people that are coming to a certain city for 2-3 months at a time, or even are displaced because of something going on at their property, and insurance is trying to find them housing for midterm stays. So not long-term stays and not short-term stays, but something in the middle, which is why they're called midterm rentals. And what you need to understand about midterm rentals is you can demand a much higher monthly rate than long-term rentals, and sometimes even match what you charge for short-term rentals, okay? What you typically find is you're able to charge somewhere in the middle. So not as much as you could for short-term rentals in your peak season, but also much more than you can charge for a long-term renter. For example, if you're typically able to generate, let's say, $15,000 a month on your properties, you are able to charge somewhere around $11,000, $12,000, $10,000 to $12,000 a month. Whereas the long-term property rentals would have only been able to charge maybe $5,000. And this is gold, guys, because what a lot of people do as hosts, if they're not so savvy and familiar with the midterm rental game, is they'll take a massive cash flow hit in their down season or their slow season. And that's something that you don't need to do. Because if someone is displaced because they need to relocate due to an insurance claim, well, guess what? That has nothing to do with having a high season or a slow season. So the key is to list your properties on these midterm rental sites and build relationships with those companies that find housing for these individuals. And once you fuse those two together, short-term rentals on Airbnb, VRBO, Booking.com, and then, for example, Furnished Finder for midterm rentals, and there are other strategic sites that you can use that I share with everybody that I work with, where you can build relationship with those companies and always plug in those midterm renters that can also give you amazing cash flow and help create a buffer for your slow season. And in fact, if you have a longer term midterm renter, not a long-term tenant, let me be clear. So someone not staying 12 months, but they're also not just staying for 1 or 2 months. Maybe they're staying for 3, 4, 5 months. That right there is the sweet spot. When you can fuse those two and build a strategy by doing your research, understanding when your slow season is, when your peak season is, not giving up the peak season months to a midterm renter, because that's when you can maximize your cash flow on a short-term rental basis. And then when you can find that medium balance, which is why this is called a hybrid approach, you can crush your competition from a profitability standpoint, and your life will completely change, and you will have more of that passive income. Because Airbnb ultimately is semi-passive. Nothing in life, guys, is passive. Everything requires at least some degree of work to maintain it, right? No matter what the investment is, you still have to keep an eye and a pulse on it. But the beautiful thing with Airbnb is you can largely automate all of that. You just still need some involvement, which is completely fine. But there's even less involvement if you do midterm rentals right on those slower seasons, because once someone plugs in, you're not churning every weekend, every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks. You're able to take a guest and allow them to stay for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever the case is, months, while you also maintain highest income on your short-term rentals. So this is key, guys. This is the ultimate way to do Airbnb in 2026. So everything still stands with having stellar properties on short-term rental platforms or mid-term rental platforms. All the amenities and the strategy still stands. So what you still need to focus on to crush it is still doing amazing market research and property research, and at the same time, understanding how to create a strategy where you fuse these two together so that you still maintain the benefits of both and also maximize your income. Okay, so please keep this in mind if you want to succeed and beat out most hosts in 2026. I'm telling you, you're hearing this first right here. You want to fuse the two together, and that way you will maximize your income. And short-term rentals, Airbnb, Vrbo, all of that is still an amazing opportunity. Okay, so if you want to learn the hybrid B&B model in 2026 and absolutely crush by using this method that I'm going to teach you, you can click the link in the description, apply to see if you qualify to work with me, and I would love to help you build your business, build financial freedom, and build time freedom. For the rest of you, feel free to click the link also in the description that I have a completely free course on how to start your Airbnb business in 2026. And make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. It helps the channel grow tremendously, and I'm able to make more videos like this for you. I hope you found this helpful. Be great.